What's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about fantasy football strategy for next year. We're going to be going through an entire recap of 2024, explain what didn't work and what did work, and overall, we're just going to be, going through everything, going through my process. And this is how, I decide how to draft my fantasy teams. I look at what happened the previous year and I look at trends that happen. I only went back 1 year, but if you go back more years, you'll be able to see more of the same of what I'm about to show you guys today. And yeah, if you guys like these fantasy football videos, I'm going to be doing a lot more of them as the season gets closer and closer. It's just a bit tough to do fantasy football right now because of the off season and all that stuff. That's why I did a little bit of Dynasty and then just decided to do a couple off seasons. But yeah, I think we should get started with the 2024 recap. So as you see, I have my legend right here. So green means that they were top 3 in their position, minimum 5 games played, points per game, or positional ranking. So basically what that means is I go look at wide receivers. The top wide receivers based on average points per game that have played a minimum of 5 games: Jamar Chase, Chris Godwin, and Puka Nacua, right? Godwin played more than 5 games, even though he's hurt for a lot of the year. But if you look at the top 3 based on position rank, you have Jamar, Jefferson, and Amon-Ra. I think they're both equally as important to determining. This should be green because of that. I think that they're both really important in determining what makes a good player, because had Chris Godwin not gotten injured, he would have been an unbelievable steal in the round that you got him in, which was wherever he was. I think I just made all 3. I did the receivers first. I think I made them all yellow by mistake. But Chris Godwin would have been a steal at this pick, finishing with 19 points per game. And also, I'm getting these 24 rankings from PFF's top 400. And yeah, so basically, the players can be either top 3 in their position ranked or top 3 in their averages. They're both equally as important. And I don't want to diminish the guys who missed games or, didn't play a lot compared to these other guys. Like, someone like Puka Nacua doesn't make the top 10 in terms of total points, but he makes the top 3 in points per game. And he still played half the season, but he missed a lot of time. Although it is an issue, I'm looking for where is the best value fully healthy. Obviously, it's a bit hit or miss. It could be luck involved, like Puka's injury. You want to look at injury risk too, but overall, I think it's kind of random. And yeah, so we'll see how this goes. So 2024 recap. So players in yellow are top starters in their position, minimum 5 games played, top 10 for QB and tight end, top 12 for wide receiver and running back, points per game and rank as well. And then blue is also just some notable late hits, because there are some guys that I couldn't recognize, and obviously I didn't want to do it in like the first 50, because you want these first 50 to be the top 50 players, and if they're not, then yeah, you don't want to be there. But like someone like Kenneth Walker, averaged about 15 points a game, I think, might be less, but yeah, he didn't make it into the list on either of them. Yeah, averaged like 15 points per game. He was hurt a lot though, but he still had a decent year. Aaron Jones, David Montgomery, Cortland Sutton, Jacoby Myers, Jameson Williams, Bucky Irving, like all these guys significantly outplayed their ADP. Like Rico Dowdle was a top 30 back despite being drafted at a RB 51. Same with Tyrone Tracy, kind of, especially towards the end of the season. Jalen McMillan really picked it up at the end of the year. And then the last one, let's find the latest one. The latest one is Juwan Jennings, the wide receiver 108. Who was a notable addition because he was at I think 14 points per game. He was a really good steal, especially on the waiver wire if you guys got him. So let's look at top 3s in position, all these green guys. We can see, obviously, there's a lot of green in the top 3 rounds, even down towards here. So especially in the first round, you had 4 out of Also, I should say these are PPR rankings. Um, they are going from a 10-team format because that's just how I play. So I'm going to be doing 10-team formats. And yeah. So in the first 2 rounds, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you have approximately like a 35% chance of hitting in these first 2 rounds. So it is absolutely important that you hit. If you're drafting, like let's say you draft Bijan Robinson in the first round or Justin Jefferson here and pick Saquon up on the way back or Jahmyr Gibbs on the way back, there's a 99% chance that you're winning your league because you have 2 top 3 positions in your first 2 picks. The big things you want to avoid is the misses. Obviously, Tyreek, AJ, Breece Hall, Marvin Harrison, Chris Olave. These guys were not bad. They were like really, really bad. Christian McCaffrey was hurt all year. You can't really blame him too much for that. Tyreek he was bad. Like, he just did not have a great year at all. I think teams got onto his game. We're going to be talking about that in a little bit. A.J. Brown, hit or miss. He was a decent wide receiver. He did miss time too. But when he was here, he was definitely hit or miss. He was close in most of the rankings for fantasy points. I think he was 13. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And then for position rank, because he missed time, he was definitely a bit lower. But A.J. Brown, while averaging 16 points a game, not too bad. But like you have this 8-point game right here. You have the 5-pointer. He missed a lot of time. And the overall volatility accounted with Devonta Smith's. I think A.J. Brown is kind of like in a gray area year. It kind of sucks that he's not in any of these categories. But if you pick A.J. Brown, it's still not bad. But in the first round, he's definitely not someone you're going to want to take. And obviously Marvin Harrison Jr. and Chris Olave were both bad. Even when they were on the field, I know Chris Olave was injured a lot. Pacheco was also injured the entire year. Jalen Waddle was just bad. Mahomes, Ayuk was bad and then got hurt. Devon Smith, like A.J. Brown, was hit or miss. Etienne was bad. DK and Debo were both bad. So you really, in these first 4 rounds, this is where you are most likely to pick a top 10 player or a top starter in his position. A guy who, for most people, is going to be a wide receiver 1 or a running back 1. So, you need to make these picks correctly, and you need to do a lot of research around this round because picking Tyreek Hill, Marvin Harrison Jr., and then like Isaiah Pacheco will ruin your season and you will lose the league. So you have to at least hit on at least 2 to 3 guys in this first round. You can't draft more than 2 busts. So that's the most important thing, is not drafting busts in the first round. And second and third and fourth. Now we keep going down here, and it's a bit more spread out, especially around 7 and 8. You still have a lot of studs in there, but you also have big areas where you don't. Like Richardson, Deontay Johnson, Calvin Ridley, Keenan Allen, Evan Ingram, Xavier Worthy. These guys all missed a lot of time or were just not that good altogether. You still have a couple of top 3 players like Kittle, Burrow, Godwin, Bowers. This is the last chance that you're going to have to get a true stud number 1 guy. Because after this, there are no greens. It's all just top 10 players or players that were decent. So this is where you make your money's worth. You got to make really good decisions here. So starting from 50 on, Walker, Jones, they had decent years, but they did miss a bit of time. I think both of them. Maybe Jones didn't. I think Jones may have not missed time. Let's quickly check on that. Aaron Jones, did you miss time? Here you are. I don't think you did. Yeah, you didn't miss time. So you were good. You were good all year, but he was on the verge of being benched in a couple of those weeks. which makes his stock a little bit volatile, which is why he didn't make any of the top 10s. Kamara, I feel like this is a bit low for Kamara on these rankings, but because I know he was drafted around here in my league, I probably could have used my draft recapper. But James Conner as well, good value from here. T. Higgins, Terry McLaurin, David Montgomery, great value from this spot. JSN, Daniels, Murray, Brock Bowers. Daniels is so close to being a green. The issue is that Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow exist. They just had unbelievable years. And Baker Mayfield, very, very close to that illustrious top 3 positions. And he was drafted all the way down here, right? So we also have a bunch of rookies. JSN was a good rookie this year. You had Brock Bowers, Jaden Daniels, Brian Thomas Jr., Ladd McConkey, but you also had a lot of bad rookies. Jonathan Brooks, Keon Coleman. There's some more up here. Roma Dunze. So the first thing we're going to talk about in this video, 3 things to look for fantasy football drafts, we're going to be talking about rookies. So rookies, you at least want to be drafting at least maybe 2 to 3 per draft just because of their upside. But the issue with their upside is they're hit or miss. Like, they're either going to be a really good player in this league or they could bust just as easily. They're really the only players that their floor and their ceiling is a top 5 player in their class, kind of like, not in their class, in the league, kind of like, where is he? Malik Neighbors was for the Giants, like Ladd McConkey was, like Jaden Daniels was, or they can do pretty much absolutely nothing for you, like Roma Dunze and Marvin Harrison Jr. I was a Marvin Harrison Jr. drafter last year. I saw him going in the end of the first rounds. I thought that the Cardinals could use him correctly. It turns out that Kyler Murray just can't throw to him. And he also struggled a little bit. Do I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is a bad player and couldn't break out next year? Absolutely not. Second years are a good place to look when you start breaking out, because if it doesn't work out in the first year, usually they like to switch them around. We're going to be talking about that a little bit more later as well. They're going to switch them around and try and get them into decent positions. But rookies are probably the best form of value you can find too. I go down even farther. I'm getting into like the 80s and 90s now. You still have Brian Thomas and Ladd McConkey. You keep going and you have Bucky Irving, a top running back. Despite it, he didn't make any of those lists just because he didn't really play the first half of the season. Well, he did. The issue is he did play, but he didn't average a lot of points in those games where Rashad White was starting, but then when he started to play, obviously, he got even better. Tyrone Tracy, Jalen McMillan, like, these are guys that you draft super late. Bo Nix, that'll be super good starters for you in the long run. So, I mean, you see right here, Bo Nix was taken at pick 199. So in the top 200, there are still rookies that are going to be good. So the draft ends about, I'd say, right here. After 150, 160, usually 16 picks is you have 11 starters, right? You have quarterback, 2 running back. Usually people play quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, a flex, defense, special teams. So that is 9 starters. Or defense, kicker. That's not 9 starters. My league plays a little different. We have 10 starters, double flex. And so 10 starters plus 8 in the bench makes 18 rounds, makes pick 180 really the cutoff. And all of these guys down here, technically waiver options. But overall, if you are in a normal 10-team, 16-round draft, your draft is going to have value at the later rounds still. If you're playing pretty much anything more than that, after round 17, it really doesn't matter who you draft as much, just because like all of these guys, they had their ups, they had their downs, but they weren't really consistent enough to warrant that draft pick. The only exceptions to that is if you were one of the lucky few who took Cade Otton, Bo Nix, and stuck with him. Hunter Henry, he had a good year for the Patriots. Zach Ertz, really good year. Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith. Freiermuth, despite missing a lot of the season, still came in as the 9th position ranked player. He didn't? I swear he was injured a lot for this season. Okay, maybe he was coming back from injury. I just remember he was hurt, and that's why his draft stock was still low. And then Jonnu Smith was one of the best tight ends in the league this year. He was tight end rank 4. He averaged 13 points a game. He played really well this year. But if you aren't picking those guys, Tucker Kraft also had a good year, especially towards the beginning. Juwan Jennings. This is like getting a needle in a haystack. So overall, getting this needle in a haystack is a lot tougher than trying to go and pick top players in these positions, right? So over here is where your draft is made. You have big pockets of players that you aren't going to like, and then there's the one shining star, JSN in this case. And then this spot, you have a lot of guys going. But here's the thing about it. You can decide that a player who's worth at pick 90 is worth picking at like pick 67, right? I remember the one guy in our league this year, he drafted Brock Bowers super early, right? Here he is. He was drafted 89th overall, but even though these rankings have him at 86, which is like, oh, that's like perfect rankings. In ESPN drafts, he was going around pick 100 to 108, I want to say. Something similar to that. So don't trust the rankings when it comes to players primarily out of the top 70, maybe 65, because you can make a case. You could have made a case last year to take Jaden Daniels at 65, or even Brock Purdy or Kyler Murray at 65, or Brock Bowers at 65. I know hindsight is 20/20, but at that time, don't be afraid to reach heavily for a player unless you are 100% sure that they will come back to you. So, like, obviously, if you have pick 9, so if I have pick 59 and 62, right? And I really want JSN, right? I know he's probably going to come back to me because, there's Pickens, Flowers, Higgins, McLaurin, Godwin. This might be a little early to do it, but you take James Conner in this first round, take someone else that has more of a ceiling, then let those two guys go. 62, you reach on Jackson Smith and Jigba, and if you really like it, it will pan out. But the difference is that drafting Zay Flowers, who I know he was a Pro Bowl year, but for fantasy wise, he was kind of garbage. He was either getting 20 points or getting like 2 points, and that's really something I hate when you do in fantasy, is not be able to trust you on a week-to-week basis. But that's no different than reaching on someone like Keenan Allen. I know he had a good end of the year, but if you drafted Keenan Allen, you probably weren't in the playoffs anyway. And then Xavier Worthy, he was good at the end of the year, though. Who's a better? Calvin Ridley, right? Zay Flowers and Calvin Ridley basically had like the same value. And instead, you took a chance, and if you liked Calvin Ridley more, take him over Zay Flowers. But don't be taking like Isaiah Pacheco over Breece Hall. Like, that is a big reach, especially for the first round. And that happened to one of our guys in the first round last year, and he really messed that up. So, rookies. There's a lot of rookies in this year's draft. This is my full rankings. These aren't just from any old website. These are my rankings, and I'll update them when different teams get players. So over here we have the rookies, last year's contract, new teams, and new contracts. So this is my legend for all these different tabs. I'll post this probably in the description if anyone wants to take a look at it. So rookie wise, there's only a couple rookie QBs to take a chance on, but honestly, if these 3 rookies are starting, which most likely they are, I'm taking a chance on them. Most likely the one who ends up in the best situation. Obviously, free agency hasn't happened yet, but Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart, the Titans could go and have an unbelievable free agency, and I'd like to put Cam Ward in there. Or rookies are really about who you like the most, and do I like Cam Ward, or do I like Shedeur Sanders, or do I like Jackson Dart? That's something I have to figure out myself. Running backs, Genty, you should be drafting him. I think he's a very good player. Running back 5 might be a little bit high for some people drafting rookies, considering that Bijan Robinson was not very good in his first year. If you want to play it safe, you can draft him around the 8 or the 9, where Breece Hall and Derrick Henry are going. But he definitely has the potential to be all the way up here at the 1. And then you have Omarion Hampton, Caleb Johnson, Trevion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, Scatabo, Dylan Sampson, Devin Neal, RJ Harvey, DJ Giddens, Damian Martinez, Ollie Gordon, Brashard Smith, Kyle. It's a mouthful of rookie running backs. And my advice for these is just go where there's a good situation. So let's say that if Ashton Genty gets drafted to the Cowboys, I'm taking a lot of Ashton Genty this year, because he's the lead back. It's going to be undisputed, and most likely they get rid of Dowdle. Or someone like the Raiders, undisputed lead back. But let's say Omarion Hampton gets drafted to the... he gets drafted to the, let's say, team. Someone like the Bengals, right? The Bengals he's probably not going to go there, but he falls, and the Bengals want, a backup for Chase Brown. But a guy like Dylan Sampson gets drafted to the Broncos. Most likely, I'm taking Dylan Sampson over Omarion Hampton. And it really depends on the situation, because if Omarion Hampton or Caleb Johnson or any of these rookies get drafted to a bad situation, they can be as low as these backup running backs. Just because of, it's just... they're going to be the backup, and especially if they have a good running back ahead of them. And not all of these teams, there's so many running backs in this draft that there's no way that all of these guys are going to be starters. All of these guys, including Genty, Hampton, Johnson, Henderson, Judkins, and Scatabo, what I like to call the Big 6. There's one more that I was trying to say. Wasn't there one more? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. We'll call it the Big 6. They're the ones that I think are the best ones. I think there's one more I was thinking. Ollie Gordon too, but Ollie Gordon's falling down a bit farther. But yeah, really, it's draft who's in the best situation for rookies. And, maybe you can... I know Bucky Irving was a backup last year, but Rachaad White had a lot of red flags going for him. So, overall, even if, Caleb Johnson goes to the Broncos and he is not starting over Javonte Williams, I'm still drafting a lot of Caleb Johnson because Javonte Williams has not been good. So let's go to receivers now. Now, rookie receivers, they're just kind of they are the most hit or miss out of any of these, because they can either be a contributing number 1 on the option like Ladd McConkey and Brian Thomas were, or they could be expected to be the number 1 and, kind of be in a committee, or even bad like Marvin Harrison and, what's his name? Keon Coleman were. So McMillan, I like McMillan's 6'5" frame. He is a true wide receiver 1 build. Luther Burden could be good or could be not. All these other guys, like Golden, Ayomanor, it really, once again, depends on where they go. all these rookies are really ranked in the same place for now because it depends on the situation. If Trey Harris gets a better situation than Isaiah Bond, Trey Harris moves up, Isaiah Bond stays. But if Jack Beck gets a better situation than the two of them, he probably moves over them. And then kind of like the same thing with tight end. Tight end, I am drafting a lot of Tyler Warren. They're going to want to get into him early. And Harold Fannin Jr. is also a great tight end. So I think that whoever drafts him is going to want to use him as well. The next thing we're going to take a look for is a new team situation. Let's take a look at these guys, right? Bijan Robinson. Even though he's still splitting carries with Tyler Algier, they got him more involved with the entire year this year. Jonathan Taylor, Anthony Richardson, Puka Nacua became the number one. Jahmyr Gibbs, not a team situation, but an injury situation, boosted him into the number one role, and he ran away flying with it. Garrett Wilson with Rodgers and Devontae Adams, both of these guys, new situations. New situation, Derrick Henry with the new Ravens. Same thing with Saquon with the Eagles. Drake London had a new quarterback. Devon Achane. They relied a lot more on the run game because the passing game was not too existent this year. So a lot of these guys, Sam Laporta got kind of ousted of the offense, but he still kind of scored a lot of points. So changes in scenery can definitely contribute to a rise and a fall in players. Christian McCaffrey was hurt all year. Tyreek Hill was he was just, not being able to get open, which was his whole game. And I think teams just started to play on to what Tyreek Hill does. And I feel like that's what made Tua struggle a lot, even when he was healthy. And then, of course, you had the backup quarterback, which obviously Tyreek Hill still doesn't take. I don't take too much blame on Tyreek Hill for that. But still, he should be getting a lot more open than he is, and he just isn't. A.J. Brown and Breece Hall, they were both in the same situation as last year, pretty much. Breece Hall was the lead back. A.J. Brown was the number one on the Eagles, got thrown to sometimes, got thrown to other times. Chris Olave, same deal. Pacheco, same deal before he was injured. Waddle. All these guys with stagnant situation seem like they are posed for regression. But if teams change situation, they can either really soar, but they can also be weeded out. So let's take a guy like Travis Etienne Jr. This change in situation for the team is they got Brian Thomas Jr. and they relied on him and the pass game a lot more. But in turn, it really limited his production on the ground. He should be... I don't know why all these rankings are kind of messed up now. This should be 18. This should be 19. I don't know why I messed that all up. And then Debo. Debo went from being the undisputed number one to kind of getting his job taken by Ayuk. And then when he got hurt, Juwan Jennings took his role. And he kind of bounced around as a number two. The running game wasn't working for him like it normally was. And so he became a bust. That was a change in situation and a bust. But a lot of these guys who do get a change in situation, like Aaron Jones, probably had his best year since 2 years ago. And despite not being amazing, Joe Burrow, he finally had all his weapons back, and he was in a lot of shootout games. James Conner, I think he finally had a full healthy season apart from one game, and he became really good. Teagan's, when he was healthy, Terry McLaurin with Jaden Daniels. So looking for situation changes and looking at how they will affect fantasy value is super important, because Kyler Murray was, drafted as a QB10. He stays the QB10 because even with the addition of Marvin Harrison Jr. and James Conner playing a full season, what Kyler Murray had to do didn't really change at all. They still kind of ran and passed about the same. The target share was, it was like any normal year for Kyler Murray. And you know what? He was QB10, finished as the QB10. Brock Purdy, they were relying a lot more on Brock Purdy because of all the injuries to the 49ers. And he was in a lot of games where he was behind. So he had to throw a bit more, run a bit more. Njoku had a lot of quarterback changes. And these situations, the tough part about looking at changed situations is, figuring out is that they can happen in the middle of the season. Like Njoku was, let's go to Njoku real quick. Here you are. He was hurt a lot of the year, but like when you have I think this is Deshaun Watson. I don't remember when he ruptures his Achilles, but let's take a look now. Let's go Watson. So Deshaun Watson ruptures his Achilles game 7. Clear search. And then let's take a look at, oh no, I need to go back to all. Let's go back to Njoku. And game 7, where he got hurt, I don't think he played much of that game, but now Njoku was 23.6, 17.1, 19.1, 3.9 though. But you can see exactly when the moments changed for him. Week 7, when Deshaun got injured, his production really took a big leap. And then let's see someone else. I mean, this one is a bit more obvious, but Chase Brown, you could see running back by committee, and then I believe at week 3, Zach Moss gets hurt. No, he doesn't get hurt. He gets hurt around, or does he not he gets hurt later, but this was still a running back by committee, and then now week 5 is when he really decided to take over. So let's go look at him from week 5. He had 23 and 16 points. He averaged a lot of yards per carry. That was his big thing. 7.8, 8.9, 5.3. He didn't average too good in this game, but he had a lot of receiving work with the touchdown. But then after this, he kind of had a dip for a little bit as a starting back, but as soon as he got into his rhythm, he didn't score under 19 points for, 6 straight games. His situation changed, and so he boosted his stock. Jahmyr Gibbs, right? He was playing good all throughout that year, but what really changed is these last 4 games when he was playing as the sole back. He didn't do a performance under 25 points, and that's what won most people their leagues, despite people having reservations about him being hurt in the beginning. But even though this isn't like necessarily a bad player to a good player, it's a good player to an even better player, right? Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jameson Williams came back from his suspension and operated as more of a number 1 with a deep target in there as well. So they had to respect Jameson Williams, or else he was bombing over you for 60-yard touchdowns, which allowed Amon-Ra to get even more open to get all of this production, right? He had a bad game in his first game and a bad game here, but other than that, didn't score under 10 fantasy points. His target share was really good. I mean, he had at least 6 catches in a lot of games this year. And he got better as well when David Montgomery got out. David Montgomery. But looking for changes in situation, there's really not much I can tell you right now about the changes in situation for any of these guys because we don't know how their team is going to look. When we do a looking forward video after free agency, we can talk about whose situations changed and who you should target mostly. But obviously, free agency is a big one. A lot of teams that change with free agency, they could decide to use them a bit more. Because, like, the Vikings signed Aaron Jones to be their starting back. Are you going to pay him all this money to not give him the ball a lot? That's what most teams are thinking, especially wide receiver this year. you had who was it? Who's on a new team this year? Devontae Adams was on a new team this year. Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley. Let's see. It's actually not too many people. Josh Jacobs was on a new team. Joe Mixon was on a new team. Let's see. There's not too many, actually, but like, unfortunately, Diggs was having a good year before he got hurt. DJ Moore had an okay year, but like overall, there aren't too many people who are have a situation change in the top of this board here. But you're gonna want to look for them, just because with a change in situation comes a change in volume, a change in points. And the last thing we're gonna look about is contract situation. So I have highlighted everyone in this that was going to be on a new contract this year. So in other terms, these are the people who are playing for a contract this year. T. Higgins, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, Hollywood Brown, DeAndre Hopkins as receivers. Running back, Aaron Jones, Najee Harris, Rico Dowdle, J.K. Dobbins, Nick Chubb, Javonte Williams. Tight end, Zach Ertz. Quarterback, Darnold, Fields, Russell Wilson. So take a look at these guys. Justin Fields is a backup. Russell Wilson's 36. The older players have a lot of money, and they don't usually have as much to prove as these younger guys. What I'm really looking at is the guys who either haven't proven themselves or are on their first contract, and they're looking for a big payday. Like Sam Darnold, haven't produced, a lot. He came to this Vikings offense and was given a shot, really for the first time in a competent offense in his career. He wasn't really given a shot at the Niners because they had Brock Purdy, but now he had the chance, because of that J.J. McCarthy injury, to take the reins and to really boost his stock, and he did by a lot. But it's because he wants to get paid next year. Aaron Jones, he wants to get paid next year again, even though he is kind of falling off. Rico Dowdle, still on a first contract, wanted to get paid. He was given the job as the lead back. Now he does it. J.K. Dobbins, I think he's still on his rookie deal, and he was injured a lot. Now he finally has a healthy season, but he goes off. I'm not saying you guys should steer clear of these guys completely. I'm just saying, if I am drafting and I see a guy whose best season came in his contract year, I am kind of steering clear. Examples. A couple years ago with Deebo Samuel. He averaged 20 points per game, got a big payday, and then fell off a cliff. Right? And there's a bunch of other players, too, that you could talk about in this same light. Who else got paid recently? And I guess I know he's good now, but James Conner, when he got paid by the Steelers. Let's see, Tony Pollard by the Cowboys. He was a 17 points per game back, and then now he dropped all the way to like 10 or 12 points a game. I don't know if they paid Travis Etienne, but I think that was more of a different kind of situation. QB is where it's the worst, though. Dak Prescott really fell off after his contract. Tua fell off after his. Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, all these guys, when they're playing for money and they get the money and they have nothing else to play for, they usually fall off. But we can also use this as a tool. If we go here, or back here, these green players are on the last years of their contracts and have not gotten an extension yet. So even though I am worried about Jamar Chase in the same light, he went from 17 points a game to 24. That also has to do with Burrow being back, but drafting him number 1 overall when his best year comes in a year where he's playing for another deal is not something that I like as much. But you also guys like Drake London, Terry McLaurin, Garrett Wilson, Mike Evans. People I'm looking at, Garrett Wilson and Drake London in this range, just because, they want to be paid paid like a big wide receiver. And Drake London has been up and up even more. So if I'm teams the wide receiver 14, I am pushing on that button to get him. DK Metcalf, I think he's going to have a huge bounce back season next year because he doesn't want to, if he's another bad year, no one's going to want to pay him. He's going to be, he's going to probably be making the same as someone like Darnell Mooney or Khalil Shakir. Juwan Jennings as well. He's on his last year. He's getting older though. Same with Cortland Sutton. George Pickens, I could see as a really good player next year just because, once again, he has that mindset. He's kind of got that CTE mindset where, he probably wants the money. Let's be real. So, and then tight ends, there's a lot of them. Trey McBride, George Kittle, Jonnu Smith, Kelsey, but I think Kelsey's going to retire after the season. So, either way, it still is the last contract of the season. Have to honor it. Kyle Pitts is another one that I think he could. I know a lot of people say that he's like your ex or your cheating ex that you always take back. I don't think so. Not this year. I have never been a Kyle Pitts lover. I never drafted him. But if there's any year for Kyle Pitts to be good, it is this year because he's playing for a contract. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Hopefully, you guys listen to all of these. And yeah, I'll see you guys next one.